Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 202. I trust you had a really fine week. I know we did here at the ranch. Wish I could have shared it with all of you. Trust you went out and did some great shooting, talked with some good friends, and of course stayed safe wearing that mask. So I want to thank you for taking some of your time. That's very special, important, and spending it with me. Also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera. That's bedfords.com. For those who are keeping track and watching, PhotoCon, the live or the in-person event has been postponed up to March because of current circumstances, but they are doing a live version, and I am so thrilled to be asked to be part of it. I've been working on the class. I'll be recording a special class just for Bedfords. There's going to be a bunch of new content. So I hope you check it out. Head to bedfords.com for that. And of course, for all your good camera gear. And remember, when you go to checkout, use that special code, MOOSE, Moose, that's me. Save yourself some money, serious money. Sales tax for most states, as well as shipping free for anything over $99. Bedfords.com. Folks, check it out. And thank you for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. So let's get right to this week's topic. Are you wasting words? Now, what have I got now, you're asking? That's always a good question. Now, I don't know about you folks. I can only speak for myself here. But emails will come in, and quite often, rather than reading them as the author intended, starting at the beginning and reading word for word, going all the way down, I tend to scan. I kind of look, what's pertinent, what's important, do I even want to bother with it? And that's basic emails. And there's some emails, not pointing fingers at anybody here, that are just way too long. There are just way too many words there. Vast majority of them being wasted on me. And I got to thinking about, hearing some other people's, they comment about how emails or articles, or more importantly, photographs, just have way more than, hey, grab my attention, make me want to look for more, read the fine print, however you want to look at it. They just get lost. There's just way too much. And I could say, keep it simple, stupid, and kind of like in the podcast, and that would kind of like finish it up. But it's more than that. And why is it more than that? Well, whether you're writing 1,000 words with a photograph or in an email, and please don't send an email that long, Lordy. You had all those words because you had something to say. So I'm not talking about too many words. I'm talking about wasting words. When I first started out, my first editor, photo buyer, Dick was a smart guy. He was a really smart guy. And I learned a lot from him. And one of the first things he said, and you remember this is back in the days when you weren't supposed to write your own articles. You're supposed to have one person write, one supposed to illustrate, and editors weren't really looking. They didn't even consider a text photo package from the same person. So we put my beautiful bride's name on those articles. It's by Sharon Peterson. You look at the early articles as text by Sharon Peterson, photos by Moose. When in reality, it was all done by me, but we want to make the sale, so we put her name on it. Anyway, Dick read this article, literally my first text photo package to get published, and he said, it's good stuff, but your problem is you're just way too flowery. And I'm like, the article's about birds. I didn't write anything about flowers. So are you talking about the right, piece? He goes, no. When I say flowery, is that you're writing way too many words. You got to make each word count for 10. And he says, and you should do at the very least that in your photographs. And after someone made a comment this last week, I'm like, it still rings true. Be it for emails or photographs, be it for a magazine or for Instagram, a lot are wasting words in their photographs. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, trying to characterize it is the bit of the challenge. And of course, saying some things so some people don't think I'm directly talking to them. But there are certain photographers I know and certain photographs I've seen where until I actually read the caption, Instagram, and I actually read that I'm supposed to be looking at this small little detail, which totally went flying past me as I'm looking through the photograph, that I know that detail was there and it was important. And to me, that's wasting words. I mean, if you're including details that only you see, or you have to point out visually, and let me tell you, if it's really so desperate, you have to put a red arrow pointing at the detail in Photoshop for people to see it, you're really wasting words. Back when I started, they said that a person, when they flipped the page of a magazine, you had about 7 seconds to grab their attention. Last time someone actually mentioned that to me was many years ago, could be up to 10 years ago. They said you had a quarter of a second to grab someone's attention when they flipped the page of a magazine. Now, if you think about it, quarter of a second, how many words can you get out in a quarter of a second? So if you're putting out more words than someone can take in a quarter of a second, you could be wasting your words or details in your photograph. Now, we put this into a couple, practical terms. First one would be when you're at the camera and people go, well, how much depth of focus do I really need? I mean, that's a really great question. And it's easy to say, well, you need enough to tell your story and make your subject pop. Okay. How do you put that advice into your viewfinder? Well, you might be saying to yourself, how much depth of focus do I need to tell my story and not be wasting words? In other words, if you could shoot at 2.8 and you take that picture and your story is there, then if you'd shot it at f11, there's a real possibility you've got more information in that photograph than you need to tell a story. You would be wasting words. Same thing could hold true for a wide-angle lens versus a long lens, and vice versa. Less is more. There's a reason why somebody made that statement or that clicky little phrase up back in the past. And what about that mirror thing about finishing? And I see people, going back and forth. You know what I'm talking about. Should I do this technique or buy that plug-in? Should I sit there and they put it up on a forum? They go, would everybody please comment my photograph so I know how to make it better? It's like less is more. In that finishing process, right? Less is more. And as you ask yourself, do you need more? What if you change to say, am I wasting words? Am I putting more into this than someone's going to get out of it? Now, you got to understand that if you're doing it just for yourself, this is a mute conversation. You can leave the podcast now. Because we're not talking about self-satisfaction, the print going on our wall, only things we're going to see. Talking about those that we're going to go out and we're going to share the great moment and share that moment with others. Now, if you think about all those great words that describe a moment like fabulous or beautiful or spectacular, those are my favorite. The one that I just love, epic, take it back. I don't really like that word. Way overused. But if you think about any of those words, right? the one single word wraps up into it a whole lot, right? If someone says it was a spectacular morning, it pretty much sums it up with a big bow on top. Yes, you could go into much greater elaboration, but would someone understand what you're trying to express if you just said, what a spectacular morning? So your photograph, you got to sit there and think about them a little bit more and perhaps put in a little less. One thing to keep in mind in this process is that we all have our own personal personal memories, if I could speak, about certain situations. My favorite one is going to be talking about sunrises and sunsets. We've all, whether you're a photographer or not, everybody on the planet has at some point in their life witnessed a spectacular sunrise or sunset. It's the nature of the great world we live in. So ours, first of all, have to be at least that good to get their attention. But then we have to put something in that to finish it off. And this is where less is more, or you could be wasting words, comes right up to mind. Because I see some sunrises and sunsets that are so complicated, so many different things, so many silhouettes, where if you think about it, sunrise and sunset on its own is this very quiet, tranquil, either the beginning of the day or the end of the day. And a lot of the mayhem that goes on between those times is not part of that moment. So when you cram in, the silhouette of the couple with the surfer, with the sunboats, or the sailboats, with the birds, with the palm trees, that's a really complicated scene. And if you want to just talk about, two people in love on a beach, you don't need the rest of those items. Or you want to talk about the single bird going by or the boat that's moored. You don't need the rest of it. And you know what I'm talking about. You can visualize that simple enough. You've probably seen examples where all that stuff is crammed in there. That's wasting words or putting more information in a photograph than you need to tell a story. How can you do a lot of cleanup for this right off the bat without really thinking about it? Because, right, if you have to jump through a lot of hoops, then it's no fun. Well, you'd be surprised if you just literally took one physical step forward, as in right foot, left foot, one step forward. That can do a lot to clean up a lot of the stuff in your photograph so you're not wasting words. When you're in the digital darkroom, you could try taking on my mantra, which is after 2 minutes, if the image isn't finished, abandon it. Because more is less. And over-processing, it's another way of saying, you're really wasting words. You've done so much more there than someone's going to take in while they look at your photograph. And these, of course, things you have to think about. It's not just because you hear about it that instantly you're going to, get past the possible problem. And I've helped some folks that I've after years, I'm not sure I could be wasting my words trying to still help them on some of this. So it's not simple to do. You've got to think about, that quick, simple sentence where you've put the elements together in your photograph. So when someone sees the photograph, they just come back with a pure emotion, a simple response. You're not wasting your words. So when you're out there shooting or sending that email, think about it. Are you putting in more than you need to? Could you just keep it simple and tell the same story and be more effective? Might be surprised how it would kind of lighten your photographic load, make it a whole lot more fun if you just aren't wasting any words. Well, you guys take care out there. Stay safe. And remember to go out there and shoot and make every click your story.